everyone, so today I'm going to be debuting my first new series to the channel, which I'm calling Fakeaway Friday. So basically every single week I'm going to be making a fake version of a takeaway, my own twist on it, because obviously at the moment in lockdown it's not the easiest to get takeaways and stuff, and takeaways also aren't the cheapest, so I thought let's make it home. And I'm really getting into cooking recently and stuff, so this will be really interesting for me to try loads of different cuisines. So I plan to do this for about 6 to 7 weeks. If I think of any more ideas, then it potentially could go on longer, but this week we are starting with fish and chips, the good old classic fish and chip. Now to some of you might think fish and chips is easy. You bung some chips in the oven, you bung some fish in the oven, absolutely done. But no, we're going to be doing it different. We're going to be making homemade chips from potatoes. We're even going to be making our own breadcrumbs to put on the fish. Even for the peas, I've got like a dressing that I'm going to be putting on it. We're going to be trying to make some packaging for it to make it look a bit more fancier, potentially some signs. Okay, so I've just made some like labels type things, and I was going to show you all this downstairs, but as I'm not allowed to leave the house, I can't do a lot of this video in downstairs out, so like ruins a surprise for my family. So we're going to show you up here. This is the signs that I've made, and because I've left this very last minute, I've not had that long, but they're okay. Holly's Fish Bar, I've called it. Done that on pages, and this is how they're printed out. So I mean, the print is not the best, but that's how they printed out, and I'm going to be putting them on double-sided sellotape and sticking them on the wrappers to look like, yeah, packaging. Something else I've made so far is these are like for the peas, to put the to put the peas in, like the little tins you get. Literally I got a glass and then wrapped a bit of tin foil kind of around the bottom of it, took the glass away and then shaped it to look like that. I then will be putting like little lids on once the peas are in. So here's the sign I made on pages. I actually think it looks quite good myself. In later Fakeaway videos, I do go into more depth on how I make the sign. The other packaging I'm going to do, which is right at the end, is I'm going to get like brown baking paper, that's the closest we've got, and then wrap the fish and chips in that and then serve it like that. And I'm also going to quickly make a sign based on what I've just shown you, and then I need to start cooking dinner because I said it'd be ready in half an hour and it's going to be at least an hour to cook. So as I don't really want to talk downstairs because everyone else is down there, I'm just going to overlay some clips and stuff, and then once I've had my dinner at the end, I'll come back onto the camera and kind of talk you guys through what I did and what recipes I used. So roll the following clips for me to show you how I'm making the Fakeaway fish and chips at home. So we're starting off with making the chips. I've got Maris Piper potatoes. I read up that they're the best ones to use for chips. I then peeled the potatoes just to get any of the bad bits off. I then cut them into quite thick wedges so they don't shrivel up and so that they look more like chip shop chips. I then drizzled them in rapeseed oil. Again, they're meant to be the best for getting them to look like chip shop chips. And then seasoned them with some salt and pepper. Make sure that your oven is preheated to 220, but we're not going to put them just in yet until the fish is ready. So you now want to get started with making the coating for the fish. So first pour about 150 grams of cornflakes into the bowl. Then you want to put the cornflakes into a sealed bag and start breaking them down with a rolling pin. You want them to go to as fine as they can. You want to go ahead and crack 2 eggs into a bowl. This is what will help the cornflakes stick to the fish. Then you want to whisk that up so the yolk is completely mixed in with the egg whites. You then just want to season the egg with some salt and pepper. So now you want to go ahead and coat the fish into the egg. So I was using frozen cod fillets, but as I soon found out, the fact that it was frozen meant that the egg was just not sticking to it. So if you do this recipe, I would definitely recommend using fresh fish to make sure that the egg sticks well. Still just want to make sure that it is completely covered and swirl it around. Sorry that the camera angle is not the best, but what I did next is just put the fish into the cornflakes. You want to make sure that it's completely covered. I just started rolling it around in the cornflakes, and then as it wasn't sticking for me, I just resorted to all methods basically to try and get it to stick. Throwing cornflakes on with my hands, tying the bag up and shaking it to see if that worked. It didn't work for me, unfortunately, but again, this was because of the frozen fish. But if you do have fresh fish, this should stick by now. This was then the finished result. As you can see, in the end, I just then had to pile cornflakes on in the hope that it would stick. You now just want to put the chips and the fish in the oven for 30 minutes. You want to turn the chips halfway through to make sure that they're even on both sides. Okay, so now for the peas, I just used a 400 gram tin. You then want to make sure that you tip it all into a microwavable bowl and cook it for about 2 to 3 minutes. So once I took the peas out of the microwave, I just wanted to season it a bit, so I just put some butter on while the peas were still hot so it would melt, and I also seasoned it with some thyme and mixed that all together. After 45 minutes, I then took the chips out of the oven. I left them in a bit longer because I wanted them to go a bit more crispy and they were taking a bit longer to cook. I also then took the fish out of the oven. Again, I did the fish for about 45 minutes just so that the cornflakes crisped up more, and obviously I had quite a big pile of them on top, but just use your judgment. I then lined out baking paper, which I was going to use for the packaging, and then put the fish onto the baking paper. Now the fish was breaking up a little bit as I was taking it out of the tin. That's because quite a lot of the cornflakes had stuck to the bottom. That was purely because though that it didn't stick to the fish properly, but I just tried to get as much of it out as I could. And I then just piled the chips all around the fish. So the portion actually looks really small on camera, but believe me, none of the portions are small. It really filled us up. So this is how all the 4 meals looked, including just the Simply chips for my sister. It also probably doesn't look the most appetising, but believe me, it may not look appetising, but it tasted really nice. So then proceeded to wrap up the fish and chips. Then the little logos I showed you earlier, I also put double-sided sticky tape onto the back of them to form stickers. I then anticipated to stick the sticker onto the packaging, but as you can see, because the grease had sort of soaked through, the sticker was just not sticking, and it obviously doesn't stick to baking paper either. So after several different attempts, I just decided to flip over the bag so the opening was on the bottom, and now it meant that the sticker just sort of lay on top quite nicely as it didn't have anything to hold down. So here's where the little pots that I showed you earlier come into it. So I just simply spooned the peas into them, making sure they were as full as possible. Then I had also shaped little lids out of the tin foil, stuck the stickers onto the top of them, and it actually stuck a lot better to the tin foil. And there was the complete finished look of all the 4 meals, and I was very, very happy with how they had all turned out. So I then set out the table and added all the condiments that you would need for fish and chips. So now everything was ready, it was time to open up the restaurant. Welcome to Holly's Fish Bar. Open for a limited season during lockdown and to household only. For my uniform this week, I found this apron liner around, which I think is similar to what you would expect someone who works in a fish and chip shop to wear. And now the food was all served, and it's fair to say that I think this went down quite a treat. The chips were definitely my favourite. Every last bit was eaten, and now it was time for me to do the wash it up, which there was a lot of, and time for me to close up the restaurant and finish my shift. So it's 4 days later, and I remembered I never filmed an ending to this video and never told you how it went. But I hope you liked the little montage that I did. Make sure you go follow my TikTok below because I've done a shorter version of the video on that as well, and there's loads more content on there as well. What I've decided to do is ask my mum, dad and sister, because that's who I did this meal for, their different ratings out of 10. So we're going to have 5 categories for this as a whole. Let me just get it up on my phone. A bit like a questionnaire that they do at the end, just to kind of see how it went, I suppose. So the 5 categories, I've got them here, I'll read out. So taste, packaging / presentation, waiting time, layout of the restaurant, so this includes things like the sign and things like that, and then the question, would you come back? So let's go through what my dad, my sister and my mum have rated me. Okay, so for taste, my dad gave me 9 out of 10, my mum also gave me 9 out of 10, so for that was the fish, the chips and the peas. And then my sister gave me an 8 out of 10. She just had the chips and the peas because she's vegan. I did ask if she wanted me to like make a vegan main option, but she didn't. So for packaging, so this is the little pot that I did for peas, and the cardboard wrapping, and then them little like stickers I made. My dad gave me 9 out of 10. My sister gave me 7 out of 10. And my mum gave me 10 out of 10. It was quite messy, but I actually was very proud of it myself. Waiting time, 2 out of 10 from my dad, 7 out of 10 from my sister, and 6 out of 10 from my mum. Now I'm going to say my mum and sister were quite generous on this one, because I said dinner would be ready at 7:30, and then I feel like, was it ready at like 9:15 or something? So yeah, this took a lot longer than I expected, including the packaging and the making of the meal time. It was probably about 3.5 hours, maybe a little bit more or maybe a little bit less. It was around that time, so yeah, it did take quite a long time, a lot longer than I expected. And then the sign, my dad gave me a 9, my sister gave me an 8, and my mum gave me a 10. And then would you come back? I got a resounding yes from all 3. Would I do it again? I would do the chips again, I would do the peas again, but the fish I probably wouldn't. It's quite a handful to do, and like I said, because kind of it didn't stick that well, I just needed the fish to be a bit more defrosted, that's the word, or I've got fresh fish. But the cornflakes worked really well. I mean, you couldn't tell that they were cornflakes. They did taste like breadcrumbs, but I didn't think the taste was that great because it was a little bit bland. I mean, my dad and mum loved it, which I was really surprised about, so I found it a bit bland. There's one more thing I needed to say. Ooh, this is really annoying, you know when you've got loads of things to say. If you guys want to give this a go, please link me on any Instagram or Twitter photos. Link me down in the comments below how yours went. It's a really fun thing. Like I said, it did take a lot of effort, it did take a lot of time, but it gave me something to do. My family seemed to like it, so please come back next Friday when we'll be doing the second one, which I do know what it is, but I don't want to give it away just yet, and I'm really excited for the next one. It's one of my favourite. We're going to go more for restaurants. Hope you liked the video and one of my first series back on the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.